Dear admission officers and professors, I'm Xuehan Zhang. Today I'm gonna talk about the risk factors in financial holding company. And I draw a conclusion that the government should focus on specifically 3 risk factors. I divide my presentation into 5 parts. Now let's come to the first part, background and motivation. There are 2 special characteristics in financial holding company. First is business diversification, and second is the complicated business linkage between financial and non-financial sector. These 2 characteristics lead to more related party transactions as well as cooperate financial risks. The Chinese government attached great importance in financial holding company due to the rapid development in China. Since 2017, the Chinese government released a lot of measures in succession. This year, the People's Bank of China issued measures for the related party transactions. Not only did the Chinese government pay a lot of attention to financial holding companies, the securities also put effort in how to analyze them. Let's just take Zhongtai Securities as an example. They use quantitative and qualitative 2 different dimensions based on different index to analyze the financial holding companies. Therefore, my research goal is to provide a reference for the government to formulate their policies and for the company themselves to operate well. Also for the securities to provide them more specific measurements for financial holding companies. To reach my research goal, I made an OLS regression model. I used this score to evaluate the risk of each company as the explained variables. I used the main risk factors as the explaining variable. I also add a lot of control variables to reduce the differences between different areas and different companies. In the data selection part, I choose 9 representative financial holding groups in China, and I used the annual data from 2011 to 2022, containing more than 900 samples. I also want to make an explanation of the variables. I considered 7 different aspects from short-term liquidity to business diversification, which containing 9 different variables to consider the risk factors. After all this things settled down, let's take a look at the conclusion. First, after calculating the z-score value of different financial holding companies, we can draw a common but interesting phenomenon. That is, the financial subsidiaries of this group always has lower risks than the non-financial subsidiaries. Let's take an example of HNA Group and China Merchant Group. As you can see here, the financial subsidiaries like Bohai Capital and China Merchants Bank has the highest z-score value, which means the lowest risk. I think this might be one explanation because the government usually released stronger regulatory policies and supervisions for the financial industry instead of the non-financial industry. And after analyze the empirical results of the regression model, I get 3 most significant factors. First is debt-asset ratio, which has a negative correlation with the z-score value. The second is equity ratio, which has a positive correlation with z-score. And at last, the IV, which also has a negative correlation. Based on the results of these 3 significant factors, I made some suggestions for the government and the company. First, the company needs to reduce the debt-asset ratio and improve the liquidity of the assets. And for the equity ratio, they need to strengthen the own capital operations. Based on DIV, the government needs to carefully evaluate the management ability to see whether they can match the business diversification ability of the financial holding company. And for the company, they also need to strengthen the risk isolation between the financial and non-financial industry. And at last, I want to summarize my presentation today. First, I used the regression model for 3 risk factors, and I also used this score to quantify the risk of financial and non-financial subsidiaries. That's all of my presentation today. Thank you for your watching.